Thank you. Oh my goodness. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having us at React Miami. I'm Jenny, lover of donuts. This is David, state machine guy. So before we start, I'd love to give a round of applause to the organizers and the sponsors to make this conference happen. So thank you so much.
Yeah, seriously, is this on? Yeah? All right, this is the most FOMO-inducing conference that I've been at. And I'm here and I have FOMO. Like, that's how good this is. All right. What are we talking about? Can I talk about state machines?
No, we're
Okay,
at a React conference. We should probably talk about React.
All right, all right. So we are going to talk about React and how good it is. All right.
All right, so what's what?
What? Okay, so I have to explain this a little bit. React is really awesome, and I'm going to tell you how awesome it is. So we're going to talk about the weird and awesome things about React. Because we're at React Miami, we should learn a little bit about React.
And I hear React is this awesome framework.
It's a library, actually. Actually, yeah. I don't know. So people can't actually, you know, I accidentally said it was a framework earlier. It's, well, okay, if you look at the docs, it says library, right? So React is a library.
Okay. I can go with that. So if React is a library, then that means Remix and Next.js are their frameworks.
Yes, but a lot of the times they're called meta frameworks for some reason. So, which makes you question, like, what is the framework? Is it React? I don't know, but yeah.
Okay, so then if React is a framework, Next is a meta framework by Vercel.
Yes.
Then React is a Vercel framework by Meta?
Yes, you're getting it. Okay, good. Some people think it's the same thing, you know. These people are very uninformed and we should teach them. This is a junior developer, you might know him. But anyway, so you know what, let me just clarify this, okay? React is a library that acts sort of like a framework.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then React is a framework that thinks it's a library?
I mean, that's also valid. But overall, React is just JavaScript. Who's heard that before? React is definitely just JavaScript, except for all the parts that aren't JavaScript, like JSX, Babel, Webpack, hooks, server components, like those weird directive things.
Okay, I would hope that a JavaScript framework is just JavaScript.
Yeah, React.
So people actually say that it's just JavaScript?
Yeah, no, seriously, people say that online. You know, here's Tyler McInnes. He said it's just JavaScript. And people online are always right.
But people literally say anything online. Like Sarah Josner says that your mom is JavaScript.
You know, maybe my mom is JavaScript. Maybe we're all JavaScript, you know? Who knows?
Okay, well, anyways, let's start actually building an app.
Yeah.
I will start with npm install React.
Yeah, or I mean, you could use yarn add React. There's pnpm add React. If you're a hipster, you could use bun. So they allow anything in JSON now, believe it or not.
Well, I'm just gonna npm install React to make it easier.
Okay, you also have to install a few other things. Okay, and I think that's it. I think that's how you
Is that it?
no, actually. So if you go to the React docs, it actually tells you that it recommends that you use a framework, right? So there's, you know, a couple frameworks that we could use, such as Remix, and these are the men of Utah. That's how you know it's Remix. And then the men in black, they're the ones who made Next. So.
You're telling me in order to learn React, I need to learn a framework?
Yeah, so actually, if you go to their docs and you want to use it without a framework, they actually have a really long explanation about like why you really can't use it without a framework. So I guess if you're learning React, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So, yeah.
Okay. Actually, wait, hold on. I found that you can actually use Vite.
Yeah.
And it works without a framework.
You could just use Vite, yeah. So React, the documentation, it sort of just hides that. I mean, if you look here, it's like all the way at the bottom. And that's a common theme with their docs, I'll show you later. But at the bottom, you could use Vite. And it's just yarn create Vite, your app. With the template, you could use React or the other frameworks like Vue, Svelte, etc. So it's pretty cool. If you want to get started, if you want to learn, you know, this is the easiest way.
Okay, great. I'm going to start with making a React component.
Okay. Where did you learn this from?
From the React docs.
Wait, like these docs?
Yeah, those ones.
No. So these docs are not the actual docs. Or like they're the old docs, but it says, you know.
Okay, these docs then. I just found this.
Okay. I mean, it's okay. It's not the most up-to-date docs, but, you know, they worked really hard on it, though.
Okay, well then what about Dan Abramov's tweets? Does that work?
Yes. These are the real React docs.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
All right. So let's write a React component.
And this is much better.
Good, good.
Yeah.
But why don't we use classes anymore?
You know what? I don't know. So classes in React were actually really, really awkward. There was like component did mounts, component should update component this and that. Like obviously it's a react.component. I don't know why they start with components like for all the methods, but I mean React developers, we have no class anymore. We're just using I don't mean to, you know. We're just not classy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You or them.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah. So yeah, if you don't want to use JSX, then you know, you could also just write it this way. This is just JavaScript, by the way. But yeah, absolutely.
Does anyone do it like this?
No. No one ever does this.
Okay, I feel like we're moving further and further away than just JavaScript.
Yeah. And yeah, I have no idea where that tagline really came from, but React, let's admit it, it's just really not just JavaScript. So yeah. But you know what, regardless, you might think JSX, which definitely not JavaScript, it's actually pretty awesome, especially if you get used to it. Like it looks like HTML, feels like HTML, it's familiar, you know?
Okay, well, I ran into something weird here. It shows 0.
Oh yeah, that's one of the weird things about JSX. Okay, you actually have to put this Boolean here, like triple equals 0 to show the items. Or you could do this double exclamation mark. If you're using TypeScript, you could have a little bit more fun with the exclamation marks. Yeah.
Items as item. That reminds me of Jacobs by Mark Jacobs
Yeah,
by Mark Jacobs.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. You see this a lot in React code bases. Okay, so pop quiz here. What's wrong with this code?
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, well, we're missing a key. Yeah? It's a huge, I know it's really easy to overlook, and the for loop is a little bit of an issue too, so yeah, you could pretty much do this.
Okay, so if I do this instead, will it work?
Yeah, I mean, React is still gonna yell at you about the whole key thing, so you have to add something there.
All right, so I will just add whatever key then.
I mean, you can, and actually this is a bad idea. So just use IDs, or use an index, I guess. But this will at least make React stop yelling at you, so that's pretty nice.
This seems like React is all about functional programming then.
Yeah, you know, now that you're using map instead of for loops, but by functional programming, if you mean use functions, unlearn half of JavaScript, and also learn TypeScript, which you know, some famous YouTubers will tell you is not optional anymore, you know, then yeah, it's pretty much functional programming.
Okay. Well, okay, let's start talking about the React hooks.
Yeah, okay. So, pop quiz, and this is sort of a, I keep giving you pop quizzes. This is a math quiz, okay? Let's say we set counts to count plus 60, and then count plus 8, and then count plus 1. What's the answer?
I'm not going to say that.
No. Why don't you ask the audience? What's the answer? Who said 69? It's 1. All right, so what do we do instead?
Well, it seems like to fix this, I should probably put a function inside the set count, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to do that because set count is asynchronous. So that count is still going to be the same, and it's not like queued up until after the component renders, and then it's going to re-render with the counts. So
Can I
yeah.
do this for sets and maps too?
Okay, so this one's actually a little bit weird, even though sets and maps are, just JavaScript. This set will actually be the same instance, so that's actually not going to work. You can't really, do this. But I have an alternative. If you put it in an array and then you just like put the set in an array, you know what? I thought this was a good idea, so it hurts that they're laughing, but it's okay. You could use sets and maps this way.
Well, it doesn't seem that React really plays nice with maps and sets.
Yeah.
Even
no.
though this is JavaScript.
Yeah, I know. It's like JavaScript, 75% of JavaScript, But you know what? Let me talk about useState a little bit. It's just a really good hook, and it's really simple if you need to. Look at this. One line of code, useState. It's great.
But every time I use useState, I feel like I use 8.
Yeah. This is more of an edge case. This isn't every app. You don't really see this that often.
Really?
Yeah.
What about this?
Okay.
And this? And this?
Okay. Thankfully, we have a solution, okay? It's called useReducer. It's wonderful.
Okay, well, if that's wonderful, why doesn't everyone use it?
Because no one likes useReducer, okay? Nobody. And it's not that it's bad, it's just that it reminds people of these red ducks over here.
Wait, red ducks or redux?
Redux, red ducks, same thing. Okay. But you know what? Here is really how simple useReducer can be. Like you have these useDates and then you have useReducer, and really you only need one hook to do this. So honestly, in cases like this, useReducer might help you literally reduce the number of states.
Okay, so I guess, let's see. I could probably use useReducer for a simple toggle, similar to this.
Yeah, this is like a really, really simple, useState is even more complicated than this. But for some reason, people just don't like useReducer,
So why does the React community not use Redux anymore?
You know what? I don't really know, and also that's false. Like there's a lot of people using Redux still, either because they have to or because they're like, hey, this is actually good. Because Redux used to be a lot of boilerplates and weird conventions and things like that, but it eventually came back with Mark Erickson, and we have Redux Toolkit, which is actually pretty awesome, so you should try it out.
All right, let's see. Next we have use context for states that rarely change.
So use context is actually really useful. You do have to add this weird null as any because TypeScript is weird about that. Or you could put the exact type of whatever you expect to put in use context. But yeah, it is for more of a global state thing, but not really for all states. It's just a nice way to share state.
Okay, so can I use it for things like?
Yeah, just state that rarely changes, like a theme.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about to see whether or not Ken Wheeler is drunk?
Yeah, that rarely changes, so
Okay.
But honestly,
works.
you should really think of use context as like a dependency injection thing rather than a global state thing.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. All right, and also, when you use it as dependency injection, you end up having something that looks like this. You have a lot of providers, which are fine.
Do you live like this?
Honestly, this is pretty normal for React code bases. There's actually nothing wrong with this, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But you know what? It's actually a lot better than what we've had before.
What is that?
Okay, so these are higher order components, and these were actually really popular before context. Do you remember HOCs? Because Ken Wheeler sure does. Or sorry, Ken C. Dodds. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Downshift used HOCs, and that was a nightmare. This entire thing is a button. But you know what? Let me tell you something else. Use context is actually really cool. Did you know that it can be called conditionally? So if you have some condition, you could either use context or return null. It's pretty cool.
Okay, but if it's just JavaScript, I thought you could call any hook conditionally.
No, so you actually can't call hooks conditionally. You can't call most hooks conditionally, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. Well, other libraries were able to figure it out, like solid and vue.
Okay,
What
but
happened?
this is because of the rule of hooks, you know. And I know it's weird. I know the rules of hooks are weird. But really it's because of just the technical limitations of using hooks and basically how they work. So.
Okay. Okay. So I need to recap.
Okay.
When you're using a local state with simple updates, you want to use useState.
Yeah.
Global states with simple updates, you want to use useContext.
Yeah.
And then we have local state with actual logic as useReducer.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do for global logic and actual logic?
I don't know. Actually, you have your choice. You have plenty of choices here. And I mean, the sad thing is that React, not the same thing, they actually were so close to having a solution for this called useSyncExternalStore. Unfortunately, you know, it's not really that common. It's like if people hate useReducer, they sort of hate this one more, but it's actually a really, really useful hook. But you know what, let's move on from states. Okay?
All right, we'll talk about your favorite hook.
Favorite hook, it's useEffect, yeah. So useEffect is actually, you know, pretty weird. You know, if you do weird things like setting accounts inside of useEffect, then you get a lot of changes. And you end up with this.
Don't the docs warn against that?
All right, so you'd be surprised. The old docs, so you would have to scroll all the way to the bottom until the first mention of a dependency array. And it was a tip. It wasn't even like the core API. It was a tip. You could optimize performance by skipping effects. And then that's where they introduced the dependency array. Later, they updated the docs, but React hooks were introduced in 2018, and the official docs were released in 2023. Mm-hmm. So yeah, React sort of works in like a 5-year cycle. You know, it's just how it works.
So if I want to fetch data inside a useEffect, what happens?
So with this one, you know, it will just keep running and running, and then you owe Amazon $1 million.
Wait, what if I'm using Vercel?
Yeah, they'll come after you too. They'll get your money. And that's because we forgot the dependency array.
Okay. What if I wrote it this way to prevent being called more than once? Can this avoid the problem?
Sort of, but then you have another weird thing, which is effects execute twice on mount in strict mode, which is just really, really weird. So, yeah. And so, I mean, maybe you could just disable strict mode, but only if you need to, because life is short.
All right, let's continue to talk about the other hooks like useRef.
All right, so useRef is really cool because if you want to do something and you don't want React to know about it, you could just use ref. So it's a really great hook for that. And so in React 18 and below, for some silly reason, you have to like pass this component, the function component, into forward ref. There were some limitations where you couldn't use this as an actual prop on the custom components, but for some weird reason in React 19, it just will magically work. I don't know, they were able to figure it out after 5 years. Yeah, and so there's also useMemo and useCallback, which are also important hooks where if you're re-rendering everything, which is basically how React works, it's probably okay, but the moment where it's not okay, that's when, you know, React, you have to use memo, use callback, or react.memo, which is actually really useful, except there's a lot of footguns here because let's say you have default options and you want to pass that into a component and you're spreading over here, that is going to update every single time. Like, for example, if you do this, every single time you render the parent, that's a new object. That's a state new object. State.new, that's our company. So doing some sly advertising in there. So you have to basically pass every single prop in there for it to work. Otherwise, useMemo is pretty much useless. And another place that it's useless is for event handlers. So if you've ever tried to do this, this is one of the most confusing things. You have onChange on a value whenever that value changes, but ESLint will yell at you because you're forgetting that onChange. So you have to pass the onChange into the dependency array, but if that has some upstream updates too, then you're going to just keep calling this useEffect because onChange is going to just keep on changing and keep affecting things that make the component re-render. So the best thing to do is just to tell ESLint to shut up. Yeah. And so actually, Kenzie Dodds talked a lot about this too, where basically if you have an event handler, and you try to put it in use callback, just don't do it. So a great way to remember this is if you can put it, if you're asking if you should put in an event handler and use callback, you can't.
Oh, Kent is awesome.
Kent is great.
Okay, wait, so all of this use memo and use callback stuff, it's a little bit confusing. I thought React is supposed to be fast by default, so like, why do we have to make it slow?
Well, you know what? Thankfully in React 19, React Forget is coming up, and that's going to let you just completely not use those, hopefully not use those use callback, use memo, all of those weird optimizations that you had to do.
Why forget?
I forgot.
No, forget.
Yeah, it's called actually, okay. So React has these projects or experiments that they do. I think that's it. So they have like Flight, Fizz, Fiber, Fabric, Float, and all these other things. And Forget is one of those ideas. So that's why it's called that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's head on to the other hooks, like use debug value.
Oh, yeah, so use debug value, no one ever uses it, so. But let's see, there's use ID, really useful for accessibility. Use imperative handle, underrated, everyone hates it, no one uses it. We have use insertion effect and use layout effect as if we didn't have enough use effect hooks. And then we have use transition and use deferred value because a while ago React had this whole concurrent mode thing, but then they killed it for concurrence features, okay, which you'll probably never use anyway. And then we have use form state and use form status, which will never get confusing. And we have use.
Use what?
No, useWat² is our talk. This is just use. It's really useful for stuff.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh, you mean RSCs. So RSCs are also a little bit weird. You have this random string that somehow tells the component. I mean, you heard Sam talk about it in the last talk, or actually you didn't because you were locked outside for some reason. But we have use server and use clients and use whatever that sort of say, hey, this component should actually, I think, like render or run on the server versus the client, and it makes things a lot better. I still don't get it, but yeah. So.
Okay, so do I just put use client on top of my component and it should run?
You would think that, but this actually will make React complain because even though it's a client component, it runs on the server first, so it's not fully a client component. So it's going to yell and be like, what the hell is a window? So.
Why can't I just check to see if it's defined and then use it?
So, I mean, this is fine, but you know, things like Next.js will actually yell at you because the width does not match, like the server width does not match the client width. You have like whatever number it is versus IDK. It's not going to be happy about that. But there's actually two different strategies for that. So you could use state and use effect, and basically this is going to show 0, and then use effect's only going to run on the client. So when the client renders this, it's going to like just flash from 0 to whatever the actual width is. But there's also another thing you could do, which is use sync external store. Really awesome hook. And so TK Dodo talked about this. I really recommend you read this. But with use sync external store, you have no sub, and then you have this window.innerWidth over here. This is what the client sees. This is like telling you this is a snapshot from the client, and this is the snapshot from the server. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, but why no sub?
No sub is because usync external store uses pub sub mechanism.
Ooh, pub subs. I like those.
Yeah, pub subs are great. So if you're new to Miami, go visit the Publix, get a pub sub. They're actually pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, so in the React docs.
Yeah, so the React docs, I mean, server components are actually pretty good. If you're using Next.js, they're stable. So.
Wait. They say that they're not stable in the React docs.
Yeah, but I don't know. Next.js, they have a lot of money, so they could just do whatever they want and call them stable. Yeah, so no one really supports React components. But I mean, other than that, listen, React is awesome, okay? And no one ever got fired for choosing React.
Wait, unless they use the use secret DOM do not use or you'll get fired.
Forgot about that. Yeah, people have gotten fired for using React, as it turns out. But also, honestly, React is still being improved. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of development. It's great.
Even though the latest release was in 2022?
Okay. Yeah, but honestly, it's constantly being updated. And besides, React is really, really popular, especially compared to all of the other frameworks. The numbers here, they don't lie.
They are lying because those are version numbers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, React jumped from 0 dot whatever to 15. There were a lot of breaking changes, I guess, so they had to really, really pump that number up.
Hold on, this is probably the graph that you're looking for.
Yes, okay, here we go, here we go. So, as you could see, there's React, okay? And you could see how React is much, much more popular. This is a downloads graph, so it's showing how React is more popular than Vue and Angular, which is the x-axis. Yeah. But you know what? Here's some hot takes because we have 14 seconds left. Oh, that's negative 14 seconds. Okay. First of all, don't worry about the cutting edge React stuff. You know, you don't have to be chasing every new shiny feature of React. It's probably 5 years away anyway, and it might get canceled. That's what React likes to do for some reason. And also, don't worry about silly things. We get so caught up in like, you know, dependency arrays, hooks. Should we use memos? Should we put things in context? If you've been around a while and you've used React back when there were class components, you probably remember this. And we don't talk about this anymore. So just imagine how much time was wasted just arguing about that. So, you know, React is a very popular framework for a reason.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you all enjoyed this talk, and I hope that in the end you realize that you should learn at your own pace, okay? You are not going to operate at the same capacity as the person next to you. So you do what you can, and remember that when you're learning new things, it can be a little bit weird at first, okay? So embrace all the weird, all the funny, all the awesome things, whether in life or when you're learning React. And yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, React Miami.